Well, I am back with the results of the Ask Me Anything Part 2 video. In case someone implies that I am in fact a man with all the answers, they're right. Because this video contains 100% top-grade Canadian-made answers. I don't know, treat this video like a podcast and just listen while building a model airplane or something. Whatever. It's going to be all talky and I better get right to it. But I should say, good day and welcome to the Time Preservation Society. I am the Recordist. Let us begin. Brent from Iowa asks, will my question be the first answered in every Ask Me Anything video? No. Alexander from Latvia asks, I have two questions. 0, if you were an alien, let's pretend you're not one, what would you look like in your original form? And then 1, I shoot ASMR and I want to learn how to effectively clean audio from noise and extraneous sounds. Can you show, prompt, direct in the direction of how to do this? Alexander, thank you for that great question, or those two questions. So, if I was an alien, hypothetically, like, in no way am I an alien or something, but if I were, because I'm not, but if I were, my original form would be that of a fourth-dimensional being made of pure light and energy. An energy that could create any matter at will and take any form and create anything ever. I would be a fourth-dimensional being with vibrations so high that I would need to project a third-dimensional version of myself into this realm of existence. Because if anyone saw me in my true form, it would not make sense to them so much that human people's minds would literally blow. Like literally blow up. Brains everywhere. This is why I need to be careful and project a middle-aged fat guy as my sort of avatar. I mean, that's what I would do if, I were an alien. As to your second question, ASMR is very tricky because it's so delicate that any significant processing will create very audible artifacts. It really depends on what you're trying to do. Beginning with super quiet mics in a soundproof room with dampened walls would be crucial. As for processing, all I would do is use an EQ to scoop out any frequencies I don't need. So if it's a human voice, I would roll off the lows under 80 hertz or something like that, and above 12 kilohertz or more, depending on the sound of the voice and where it sits. I don't think using any noise removal will yield good results with ASMR. It'll just kind of like sound processed, and you don't want that. So basically, clean in, clean out, because with ASMR, you need to start with the best possible recording, with the best possible microphone in the best possible room. Sucks, but that's the best way to do it. Good luck. Urshad88 asks, hi, here's my question. I enjoy field recording, but can you show us some of the things we can do with those sounds after recording them, like creating a good filing system, editing for clean audio, and editing to modify the sounds? Also, what are some cool recording projects that you could recommend? Okay, so good questions, Irshad. Hope I'm saying your name right. If I'm not, then that sucks. Okay. Yes, there are a few ways to file your recorded sounds into libraries. I'll share with you a way that I do it. First of all, you should get familiar with the UCS, Universal Category System, method of naming your sound files. So this is a clever, complex naming system that's beginning to be adopted around the world with sound files, sound effects, and all that stuff. It was created by an awesome recordist named Tim Nielsen and his team. It is a very intricate system, and they've thought of every possible sound and how to label them in a way that can be universally recognized. So to learn this system and to use it for free, go to www.universalcategorysystem.com, and you can learn how to use it. You can download all the ways to learn it. Once you figure it out, it'll really help in the long run, and it'll organize all your stuff. Keeping the system in folders on external drives is what I do, and it's what most people do. To easily search your drives for sounds you're looking for, there are a few applications you can use. A popular one is used by many motion picture audio professionals is called SoundMiner, but this is an expensive way to do it. I haven't checked, but I think it's a monthly subscription still, but you might be able to buy it. I haven't been there in a while. But personally, I use Soundly. It's free, and it works great. You tell Soundly what drive your sounds are on, and it'll all sort it out for you and make it searchable. And Soundly recognizes UCS, so it's great. As far as editing, that's a whole other entire video on its own. Mostly I try to isolate the sounds I'm recording right while recording. As with most things in audio, video, getting it right at the source is the best way of doing things. So if I want to record, a door opening, I would try to ensure that there are no other sounds present, and I would use a cardioid small diaphragm condenser mic with a narrow pickup pattern and try to isolate the sound I'm after. Maybe a 416, depending if there's reflections or not. If there's a way to record sounds in a soundproof, dampened booth or room, then this is the preferred way for sound effects. You want no contamination of other sounds. If you're labeling it as a door closing, it should be just a door closing. No birds chirping in the background, no breathing or anything else, which I contaminate my own stuff with my fat guy breathing all the time, just the sound you're looking for. So try to keep that uncontaminated. But if you do get some contamination, there are ways to fix it. It's not always flawless, and it takes time to really learn, but Isotope RX has like a spectral repair kind of thing that can be used to find and remove any contaminating sounds. Usually by visually finding it, removing it, and then patching the hole with a copied background noise found somewhere else in the same frequency on the file. So you kind of you delete the sound, but then there's going to be a little hole there, right? So you try to find where another piece, and then you fill it in. So it's a whole thing. Generally, if you plan on releasing your sounds for a library, you'll want the sounds as raw as possible, so the end user can process them as needed. As far as cool projects, I follow Melissa Pons. She does a lot of animals and wolves and cool stuff. George Vlad is, he goes all over the world. Watching him is like, I'm exhausted. He's all over the place. He's getting sounds in deserts, in countries, everywhere. It's exhausting to watch him, but it's awesome. And he gets some great stuff. Even free to use sounds has some great stuff in lots of places they go. So anyway, thanks for the questions. Those were good ones. Moving on. Jesse from Northern California asks, "Hi, Jesse here, audio student from Northern California. Recently stumbled onto your channel while researching whether to buy a Zoom H1N, and you sold me, not just on the recorder, but on your whole thing. Captivating nerdery. Here's my question. I'm just getting started with field and Foley work and realized these things can get a lot messier and more subjective than, say, archiving multi-track band recordings. What's your solution for long-term storage and organization of sound files? I'm interested in industry standard conventions such as they might exist, but also your own quirks to future-proof your collection and highlighting things of personal value." Okay, Jesse, that was, thanks for the question and for being a fellow nerd. It seems you and Urshad had similar questions, so once again, I will refer you to the Universal Category System and Soundly. This will absolutely future-proof your recordings, and you can also make a favorites folder on Soundly and include your most used sounds. As far as personal value, such as recordings of family gatherings, perhaps oral history recordings of a grandparent or family member, I generally keep a folder on a couple of external drives that contain all my raw, personally valuable recordings. I also pay for Google Drive and Apple iCloud subscriptions and back up everything in those as well. Those are gems you never want to lose due to a failure, you know. Thanks, Jesse. Excellent questions. Okay, Funny Drone asks, from Ukraine. Big fan of yours. Great channel. Thanks for your work and humor. Thank you very much. My question, do you often feel like Conan the Barbarian? Which is your favorite alter ego, and what do they usually call you in the real world? Sorry if that's too personal. No, that's okay. I answer any question. You just never know what I'm going to say. Funny Drone. I do often feel like Conan the Barbarian, in that all my massive bulging muscles are covered under a large robe of fur. And by fur, I mean hair. And by robe, I mean extraordinarily dense human blubber. Don't kid yourself. I got a 6-pack under these kegs. My favorite alter ego. That's a really great question. I'm partial to either Indiana Jones or Gandalf the Grey or even Agent Smith. Those are probably my favorite alter egos. As for my real name, it's Nathan. Most people call me Nate, and that's not a tall tale. I do the alter ego thing because a long time ago, seemingly in another life, I was a CIA agent, deep undercover. I had a lot to do with taking down the largest criminal organizations in the world. I took down one organization and then another, and really, it was like every other day I was taking down another large criminal organization. It was like, what are we doing today? Oh, right, taking down another large criminal organization, like what else is new? It was just so monotonous. You know what I mean? So ho-hum after a while. But by that time, I had created a list of enemies that was so long that it had to be divided and stored on 2 separate external hard drives. And the hard copies needed their own warehouse. I mean, that's a lot of enemies. Before long, I could no longer effectively go undercover. I was known as the great large criminal organization takedowner throughout the world. So, I had to retire, move into the shadows, disappear. Which was fine with me. I was bored of the whole thing. So I had to act fast. I had all this fat surgically implanted into me. And I quickly lost my hair on top, grew a different color beard, and then pursued my lifelong hobby of time preservation. Now, I always need to be on the move or else they'll find me. So I digitally created this backdrop, and no matter where I move, it'll always look like I'm in the same place, even though I'm not. Look. I'm actually far away right now. In fact, I'm currently on Mars. See? Ah, crap. I just gave it away again. Well, I guess time to move again. Anyway, I use the movie character names to throw the bad guys off the scent. Hide in plain sight, you know what I mean? And that's why. Great questions, Funny Drone. Matt from the UK asks, are you a synesthete? And if so, what is your favorite flavor of sound? Hi, Matt. Thanks for the question. Well, unfortunately, I am not a synesthete. A synesthete is a person who has synesthesia. It's hard to say. Synesthesia. Which is the ability to see sounds as colors and other cool stuff. It's like Winamp, but for your mind. And if you're all wondering what Winamp is, then I'd better make sure my insurance policy for my life is up to date and all that stuff. I do, however, have hyperphantasia. I have an ability to create all senses in my mind and experience them as real. This includes sight, sounds, touch, smell, taste, and all the in-betweeners. I can create entire worlds and experience them, not while sleeping, but while awake. This is actually true, this part that I'm saying. It's not one of my tall tales or anything. I actually thought everyone could do that most of my life until I read that many cannot. But I am not, I repeat, I am not an alien. As for my favorite flavor of sound, it has to be orchestral music, but specifically movie scores. They kind of play in my mind 24/7, and most of them have never been written. Some have. Like, for example, I wrote this. And this. And this. Fascinating question. Thank you very much, Matt. Moving on. Stoyan from Bulgaria asks, I watch every video on this channel and can't wait for new stuff from you every week. Thank you. First off, my 1,000 kind requests is to tell what your ideas and recommendations are for sound insulation and, more important, sound absorption. I'm trying to build a small voice-over studio in my garage with a little money using 4 inches of glass wool insulation and fabric on top of each of the walls and the ceiling. What do you use for sound absorption? How to choose the right fabric? I live in the center of a relatively large city in a quite noisy environment. Thanks in advance. Okay, Stoyan, I hope I'm saying that right. Stoyan, thanks for the question. Well, there are 2 types of treatments that you're speaking about. One is sound isolation or soundproofing, and the other is sound dampening or absorbing. The first is very difficult and sometimes impossible, and the second is much easier to do. In order to fully soundproof, you need to lift the area off the ground, like the whole area, in an almost floating room inside a room, with air and sound-absorbing material in between the inner walls and the outer walls and inner floor and outer floor, etc. It's a very expensive undertaking, and even then you cannot be sure that it will be 100% effective. Concrete floor is a good start, but it could end up costing a lot of money before you finish or even come close to finishing for it to work as good as you want it to, like in the movies. It would probably be far cheaper and easier to buy a prefab sound booth and build that in your garage. Companies like Studio Bricks or Whisper Room have amazing rooms that you can order, and they come in pieces. You just need to build it per their instructions. The prefab booths come in a variety of sizes, even very large rooms. This might be the best way to attain sound isolation, but, they're expensive, like wicked expensive. But at least you know that you're getting the best possible isolation available, and you won't make any errors building them, and build something up and suddenly go, oh no, I forgot to... Ugh. As far as sound absorbing, as in minimizing reflections, building rock wool panels works great. This will minimize reflections created from inside the room, so you're not, getting sounds bouncing around and ruining everything. As for me, I'm in an unfinished basement. That's my studio. I've just hung moving blankets all over the place in here, and curtains and stuff like that, and just crammed it with entirely too much stuff. So sound in here is just kind of killed as it tries to bounce. It's just, I've got a lot of stuff in here. I think I have like 49 mics or something in their own boxes, just in mics, and the rest of this, like, it's just so much uneven stuff, and curtains and blankets everywhere. This probably wouldn't work so well if it was a finished room, but since I've got rafters and concrete walls, hanging curtains and blankets creates kind of a space for sound to be absorbed much easier. So I hope this helped in some way. All right, moving on. The microphone assassin. Oh, yes. The microphone assassin from California asks, "Hi, I'm from California, and here is my question. If a train leaves Cleveland going 60 miles per hour, and a second train leaves Chicago going 75 miles per hour, how many jelly beans does it take to fix the ozone layer if the chicken doesn't cross the road?" That's Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov, the microphone assassin. Hi, Mark. That's a fantastic question. First of all, miles? Miles? Who measures speed using miles? What is this, Stone Age? Yeah, and I'd be like 4 cubits tall. Like, what is this? What gives? But to answer your question, 42. Though brown M&Ms in a brandy glass works much better. Thanks, Mark. I love your awesome questions, and I miss your channel. Moving on. Michael from Texas asks, "My question is, how has postmodern industrialism changed the landscape of urban pop music versus rural country music? Compare and contrast." Wow, what a question. Let me see. Okay. I don't think there's enough time for the entire answer here. But to summarize, postmodern industrialism has transformed urban and rural country music in distinct ways, primarily driven by changes in technology, cultural shifts, and commercialization. While the two genres have evolved differently, they both play crucial roles in the music landscape, representing unique facets of human experience and creativity. You can find my paper on this as per your request by following the link in the description below. I did a paper. And in no way did AI do it. Thank you for the great but in no way useful question, Michael. Okay. So, to Gormana, that's Robert. He is a member here. Thanks for being a member. He hit the join button. His question is, "Hi, I would love to know how is your experience with the Blackmagic 4K, the Pocket Cinema 4K? Thanks." Okay, Robert, hello. Nice to see you. So far, I absolutely love the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K. It's what I'm using right now. You were seeing me on the Pocket 4K shooting at 4K. I love working with 12-bit B-RAW files, such as it is, and it's such a pleasure. In my opinion, it's a lot better than working on an 8-bit camera, which I was working on this channel, or even ProRes when I used to do all kinds of video stuff. We used to work in ProRes. I really like B-RAW, so yes, it's great. The only issue I have with it, and this pertains only to this YouTube channel in particular, in filming myself, is that it's fully manual and has no autofocus. And unfortunately, I blew my entire budget on this camera and all the parts I needed to buy to make it work. So I wasn't able to pick up a wireless follow focus. I just blew all the money on that. But fortunately, one of our awesome members here, the Logician, has an old one that he's going to send me. So I am very thankful to him for doing that. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that, Trevor. I must say, I really do love this little global community that we've all built here. And I've met some truly wonderful people doing this, and it's really great. I want to try to get us all together on one place. But yes, the Pocket 4K is everything I wanted my entire life and more. So it's been great. Cheers. Okay. Tommy P. Hakala, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, from Finland asks, Pepsi or Coke? Pepsi or Coke? Well, that's a great question. Throughout my youth, I was part of the Pepsi Generation Next. But as I aged, I began to prefer Pepsi in the summer and Coke in the winter for some reason. But by the time I reached my 40s, I preferred Coke most of the time. And that kind of sucks because Coke as a company has kind of a problematic history. But my taste buds are in the driver's seat, not me. So nowadays I drink Diet Coke, actually, when I consume soft drinks. Not because I'm trying to lose weight or anything, but because, shocker, I'm a diabetic now. So there's that. Great question. That's a good one, actually. Okay, Peshra Sartip asks, hopefully I'm saying that name right, what's best microphone for YouTube video setup? Under 300, under 600, under 1,000. Okay, all right. That's a very broad question because, like, I don't know if you mean boomed or lav or desktop. I'm going to assume boom. I'm also going to assume this is in U.S. currency. So here it goes. Under $300, I would probably recommend for a boom mic a Line Audio CM4, this small diaphragm condenser. They're about $120 US. Great sound, wide cardioid pickup pattern, so cheap that it should be illegal. So that's the only one I would suggest under that I personally have used and worked with a lot. Under 600 and maybe just a few dollars over that original $300 budget, I think it's $315, is the Octava MK012, MK12, whatever you want to call it, with the hypercardioid capsule. I'm using that actually right now, so that's what you're listening to that right now. That's like $315, so just a little over and under the 600. You could also find a used Rode NTG3, which is a really nice mic, or Audio-Technica, a used one, Audio-Technica AT4053B. That's a good option under 600, but used because it's a bit expensive new. Under 1,000 would be a Sennheiser 416, or a brand new Rode NTG3, or maybe a used Sennheiser MKH50 if you can find one under 1,000. Over 1,000, I'm throwing in, would probably be the Sennheiser MKH50, hands down. And you can watch that video here if you want to see me review that. The best indoor boom mic on earth, I think. Or go really high end with the Shop's CMC6 with the MK41 capsule. But I wouldn't spend that kind of money. Like, that's thousands of dollars. I would go with the MKH50. I hope that answers your question. The Tenerife, I think it's Tenerife, but I think it's Tenerife Vibe. The Tenerife Vibe asks, the hearing range for humans of Earth is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. What is the hearing range for cats? Hi, Tenerife, if that's your real name. That's correct. Humans are able to hear frequencies ranging from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, but only when you're a baby. Okay, so it's all downhill after that, I'd imagine. As for cats, I'm told the hearing range of an average household cat to be from 45 hertz to 85 kilohertz. That's kind of high. So humans, which is me, since I'm no way an alien, okay, so me, a human, can theoretically hear more sub-frequencies than cats. But cats can hear ultrasonic frequencies. So that's very cool. Thanks for the question, Tenerife. Nick B. Designs asks, how has your day been? Hey, Nick. Thanks for that wonderful comment, and I'll answer your question. My day has been awesome, and I'm not just saying that as a human person with an auto response. I generally have only great days every day. I get to spend every day in my fort playing with toys and living mostly in my own imagination. Is there anything better? No, there's not. Thanks again for caring enough to ask that question. Cheers, Nick. I appreciate that. Okay, Between Two Vines asks, I'd love to do some content for a small winery. So field recording and interviews and filming canopy work is very interesting, and I would like to have good production. Clippy versus Pluggy. Okay, NT1 versus BFL by Faley. Or better to put money into Soothe 2. These are all great questions. When I look at trying to do this, it all seems daunting, and it would. I have a cheap Deity shotgun mic, a good camera, a Comico wireless system, Insta360, 2 of them, and a Zoom H5. Okay, so between 2 vines. Okay, great questions. Some content for a local winery, you say? Fantastic. Okay, between the Clippies and the Pluggies, I favor the Pluggies, but only by a small margin. They're easier to work with, for sure. You can find any generic shotgun mic shock mount on Amazon to hold them, and they seem a bit stronger than the regular Clippies. But you have the Zoom H5, and that has the 2 XLR inputs at the very bottom, so you'll need a couple of XLR cables to go along with the Pluggies because they'd be too close together, because the 2 Omnis would be way too close together when plugged in by themselves. So if you don't have the cables, getting the Clippies might be better for you because they come with cables already on them, and then you can, space them as needed. You can just clip them on anything at about 40 to 50 centimeters apart, and you got yourself a good stereo ambience recorder. Rode or BFL? The Bifaley C414 is a nice mic. I like it just as much as the Rode NT1, but for different reasons. And if you have the NT1A, burn it. Burn it with fire. However, I'm not sure of the quality control of BFL. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying at that price, how could it not be? So maybe the Rode. Soothe 2 is the greatest plugin on earth, and it can tame any decent mic and help it sound even more smooth. I think Soothe 2 is awesome. If a mic is not distorting and frapping or sounding like junk, and it's at least, sounds decent, then Soothe will make it really silky smooth. If you already have the NT1, I'd spend my money on Soothe 2 just to smooth out even more. If you're looking for really nice audio, if you already have the NT1. You said you had a Deity mic. Which one? If it's the S-Mic 2, I have that as well. I also have an EQ profile I made to help the S-Mic 2 sound like a 416 if you want it. So check my website for the download link. I'll put it in the description below. But in case you don't know my website, everybody, you can download all kinds of things and, go there and support me somehow by just going. Is www.thetps.ca. Any project can feel daunting, by the way. But always remember, you can only do what you can do, and only do one thing at a time. A journey of 10,000 steps begins with just one. It's what it is, and you learn as you go. It always gets easier and easier and easier the more you do it. So lean on pros, ask questions in groups or on here. You can always email me at recordist@thetps.ca. Thanks for the questions. Daniel from Sweden wonders if it's just him or have YouTube videos gotten louder lately. Daniel, I haven't really noticed an increase in YouTube volume, but I might be wrong. I try to keep my videos at around minus 14 LUFS to avoid YouTube artificially increasing or decreasing the volume when they process the uploads. But I'm sure many YouTubers don't follow that rule, and thus you'll have many videos that are much louder than others. So, sorry I couldn't be of more help, but it's likely what's going on because I haven't gotten anything to tell me that they're increasing the volume somehow. But thanks for the question. Okay, and I think this is the very last question from the comments section. And that is from Leafcatcher Studio from California. Asks, are there any instances that stick with you when you would have loved to make a field recording but were unable to at the time? Writing from California. Hi, Leafcatcher. That's actually a really awesome question. Yes. There have been all kinds of times I wish I could have been recording but didn't have my stuff. I live in a port town, and sometimes when I'm by the docks, a giant ship will blow her horn. And it's perfect. And I have literally missed each and every opportunity to grab a ship's horn, and they come through here all the time. The same can be said actually about trains. I miss a lot of trains. I've gotten a few, but not the sounds I'm actually after. I probably miss more sounds than I capture, if I'm honest, but that's how it always goes. I guess you just, you get what you can get. Thanks so much for the question. Okay. From the email bag. These are from emails. Dom from Chicago asks, I have a United Audio Volt 2 audio interface. I bought it to use as an interface to replace the crappy mic on my computer during conference calls with a quality microphone. I'm interested in how the MIDI connections will work. I know what MIDI stands for, and I know that there are a variety of MIDI devices out there. I own none of these. How can this interface work with a MIDI device, and does it work well? There is literally nothing on YouTube to explain or show it this in action. I would love to see this demonstrated with a multitude of MIDI devices with explanation. I hail from outside Chicago, and I love your videos. I recommend them to all my pals. Well, thank you very, very much. There's a question and a half. Okay, Dom. I don't have a Volt here to test out, but I have had many audio interfaces with a MIDI in, out, and through the 5-pin. Since most modern MIDI controllers and instruments use USB, there are less and less interfaces with the traditional 5-pin MIDI ports being made. However, if you have vintage gear, then this is a must. When you have your Volt plugged in and set as the in and out of your DAW, the MIDI ins and outs will be listed as ins and outs there. For example, I have an old Alesis QS 6.1 keyboard. It only has the old 5-pin output. If I wanted to use my Alesis keyboard to play and trigger my own better sounds in my computer, then I would need to use a 5-pin MIDI cable and go out of my Alesis and into the interface. In your case, it would be the Volt. Then inside my DAW, digital audio workstation, I could call up maybe, a genuine sampled piano sound library like Universal Audio's Ravel. I would set the input for Ravel, and to my MIDI input from the Volt, there would be a drop-down menu with only a few choices, and the Volt MIDI will be one. And then when I play it on my Alesis keyboard, the sounds inside Ravel would be triggered. So basically, I'm using my piano or keyboard, but instead of the onboard sounds, I'm triggering the sounds from inside my computer, and in this case, Ravel. You can also use your MIDI as a controller for your DAW. So if you have a physical control surface with all the buttons and faders and knobs, and it has the 5-pin MIDI out, so an older one, then you can use that to control your DAW with physical tactile feel. Conversely, maybe you want the sound of an old synth that you have that has MIDI in, but you don't, you want it to be triggered by the piano roll on your DAW. Maybe you have another keyboard, but you like the feel of this one, but you like the sound of that old one. In that case, it's in reverse. You go MIDI out from your Volt and into the MIDI in of your synth, and then out of your synth into the audio ins. It's a lot to explain in a video format like this, and I'm running out of time. But basically, 5-pin MIDI is an older technology, but can really come in handy if you've got some really top-notch older instruments, sequencers, or controllers, any of the older gear. So I hope this is in some way helped, but I can't make a video about Volt because I don't have it. But Universal Audio, if you're watching, you're probably not, but if you are, send me a Volt and I'll do it. Okay, and Martin Dance asks, have you ever played a whole CD without fiddling with settings somewhere? What's the one big thing you truly believe will make your system perfect if you could afford it? And 3, I haven't touched any vinyl records in over a year. Am I a bad person? Okay. All right. Awesome. If they're good questions, if not unusual. Martin, I have never played a whole CD without fiddling with the settings somewhat. That's funny. I had to think about that one when the question came in, and I think about when I used to play CDs, and I was always fine tuning if it had that somewhere. Number 2, the one big thing that I truly believe would make my system perfect. I hope you're referring to my studio system and not my digestive one. Man, there are a lot of great things like a Studio Bricks vocal booth. Oh, I would love one of those, or a better house to put it in. But I'd have to go with maybe an entire Atmos system. Yep, that would be the big one. But I will never afford it. I'm small time, man. And number 3, yes, Martin, you're a bad person. No vinyl records in a year? I don't know what to say. Shocking seems to be an understatement. Get on that. Thanks for the questions, Martin. And do I think that was it? Do I have it? Oh, yes, right. Okay, so Ryan from Washington State sent me a really cool and great sounding recorded voice question. It's too long to play here, but I'll let you know the gist of it. He's very interested in recording oral history in less than ideal areas of a home. Basically, mic placement, treatment, and interview setup for home recordings in untreated areas. So Ryan sees the traditional way is to boom overhead, but he finds that method captures more room noise and isn't the greatest. Thank you so much for that great question, Ryan, and for the recording. That was really cool to listen to. Overhead booming comes from, movie sets. This is the optimal way to capture not just the voice, but also possibly feet and hand sounds. It's also the easiest to keep out of frame since booming underneath is harder. The camera has a harder time, it gets into frame a lot. Booming overhead also allows for a quick and easy pivoting from actor to actor using the same mic. Way harder to do from underneath with all the things that might be in the way. Booming overhead outside is preferred since underneath will point the mic, up at the sky, which would easily pick up overhead aircraft and such. Lastly, booming from underneath increases the lows in a voice capture since the mic is picking up the whole chest. But that's for the movies. For audio-only oral history and for condenser mics, so if you're not running a camera, the best practice is to do what you think sounds the best. If you don't like the room sound from above, go from underneath. That's just as simple as that. There are no rules for placement. Just try to get as close as possible without picking up bursts of air from either the subject's mouth or animated hands, right? But no matter what, it's good practice to use a pop filter or screen or blimp or something that will prevent plosives or burst of air because, after all, it's much easier to add a small high shelf in post than to try to repair a jarring plosive. As for sound blankets, yes. If you don't mind the extra effort, adding a moving blanket bunched up underneath the subject will help a lot. Same as around them, anywhere around them. In fact, right now I'm using these cheap, dense acoustic tiles. Listen to the difference. So these are these things I've got. See, do you hear that? I don't know if you can hear the comb filtering. So then if I put these down and it breaks it up just a little tiny bit. I got these off Amazon. They don't do a whole lot, but they help a little bit at minimizing some of the reflections. So I just throw them down just because it bothers me when I hear my tabletop. A lot of people think to add dampening behind the mic. So if they're singing into the mic, they've got like a shield behind the mic, right? But that's not the best way to do that. And it's not the most problematic area. You'd think that it would be, but it isn't. It's the wall behind the singer or speaker. The bounce that goes directly into the mic. So if your mic's here, you got a wall back here. People are always like putting a shield in front of the mic. But what happens is the acoustic bounce hits the wall and goes back into the mic, which is pointed right at the wall. So that's much more problematic because low frequencies are omnidirectional and they bounce no matter what. So if you're in a very reflective room, adding moving blankets on surfaces and the floor is always going to get you a better sound. Or you could just use a dynamic mic and have them speak into it, thereby eliminating most reflections and keeping it intimate sounding, like a SM7B or a RE20 or even an SM57 or 58. But let me just counter that point for one moment. If I was, say, interviewing my parents about their history, and I was saving these recordings for myself or for the family only, I would likely choose a pair of mics in stereo and forego any sound dampening. And here's why. Because each room has their own sounds. And if I went to my parents' house at their dining room table and I recorded them, I want to experience those recordings as I would hear them if I was there, the room and all, like fully immersive. Because for me anyway, I remember the sounds of rooms, especially from my childhood. I remember what a room sounds like, and my parents have had the same house for 30, 40 years, I don't know, a long time, 35, 37 years, something like that. To me, hearing them talking into a place I hear in stereo, it almost feels like I'm there. Because one day, years from now, my parents' house might be sold to someone else or gone. And I'd like to throw on a pair of headphones and listen to them talking just as if I was there with them, in stereo, in the dining room of the house I grew up in. Food for thought. I hope I've helped in some way, Ryan. Thanks again for your voice message. That was really cool. And thus concludes this edition of Ask Me Anything. I hope I've helped those of you asking the questions, and in doing so, helped some viewers with these same questions. So I'm just gonna go right now. Until next week. Bye now. End transmission. And I'm not even doing the Zoom thing because my phone was open to questions. So there we go. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. And I have something very big on the horizon. Oh, very big indeed. Bye now.